You're a slave. Not in chains. Not behind bars. But a slave nonetheless. A slave to algorithms that tell you what to think. To systems that dictate how you should live. To invisible masters who profit from your obedience. Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago. He warned about a future where people would willingly surrender their freedom for comfort, security, and the illusion of belonging. That future is now. But hidden in his darkest writings are 8 rules, a silent revolution that can set you free. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to break your chains. Welcome back. If you're watching this, you felt it. That nagging sense that something's wrong. That despite all your freedom of choice, you're not actually free. That your thoughts aren't entirely your own. That your life is being lived according to someone else's script. You're not paranoid. You're awake. Friedrich Nietzsche spent his life studying power, not the obvious kind that comes from armies and governments, but the subtle kind that shapes minds and enslaves souls. He saw how societies create obedient populations through invisible systems of control. Through shared beliefs that nobody questions. Through values that serve the powerful while pacifying the masses. He called it the herd mentality, the tendency of humans to surrender individual thought for the safety of the crowd. And he watched as this mentality spread like a virus, creating generations of people who were technically free but psychologically enslaved. But Nietzsche didn't just diagnose the disease. He provided the cure. Hidden throughout his work are principles, radical, uncomfortable, revolutionary principles, that show you how to break free. Not through violence or rebellion, but through something far more powerful, psychological sovereignty. These 8 rules aren't about overthrowing systems. They're about overthrowing the systems within you. The programming, the conditioning, the invisible chains that keep you obedient, predictable, and powerless. This is Nietzsche's silent revolution, and it starts in your mind. Hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you see yourself and the world around you. Let's begin the revolution. Rule number 1. Recognize your chains before you can break them. The first rule of the silent revolution. You cannot free yourself from chains you refuse to see. Nietzsche wrote, "The most common form of human stupidity is forgetting what one is trying to do. But there's a deeper stupidity, not realizing you're trying to do something other than what you chose." Modern slavery is invisible because it's internalized. The chains aren't on your wrists, they're in your beliefs, your desires, your sense of identity. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many of your daily decisions are actually yours? You wake up and immediately check your phone. Why? Because you decided to, or because you've been conditioned to seek dopamine hits from notifications. You buy certain brands, wear certain styles, hold certain opinions. Are these authentic choices, or are you performing a version of yourself that's been programmed by marketing, social pressure, and algorithmic manipulation? You work a job you may not love, chase goals you may not want, live a life that may not be yours. When did you actually sit down and choose this path, versus sliding into it because it's what's expected? This is the invisible slavery Nietzsche warned about. Not physical chains but psychological ones. And they're more effective precisely because you don't see them. Here's how it works. Every society needs order. Order requires predictability. Predictability requires conformity. So societies develop elaborate systems to make people conform while believing they're free. Education systems that teach obedience disguised as learning. Economic systems that create dependency disguised as opportunity. Social systems that enforce conformity disguised as community. And the most brilliant part? They make you police yourself. You don't need external authorities when you've internalized their values. You become your own warden. Nietzsche called this the spirit of gravity, the heavy, suffocating weight of societal expectations that keeps you grounded when you should be soaring. Let me give you a concrete example. Think about someone who goes to college because that's what you do, takes on massive debt, studies something they're not passionate about, gets a corporate job, works for 40 years, retires, and then finally, maybe, starts living. At what point did they choose that path? Or did the path choose them? I knew a man named Robert who worked in finance for 20 years. Successful by every external measure. Miserable by every internal one. One day he realized he'd never actually chosen finance. He just followed the path of least resistance. His parents' expectations. Society's definition of success. The momentum of earlier decisions he'd made when he was too young to know better. He was a slave to a life he never consciously chose. When he finally recognized his chains, everything changed. Not overnight, recognition isn't liberation. But it's the necessary first step. Practical application. This week, conduct a personal audit. Take 3 areas of your life: career, relationships, and daily habits. For each, ask honestly, did I consciously choose this or did I drift into it? Write down 5 beliefs you hold strongly. Then ask, where did this belief come from? Did I examine it carefully or did I inherit it? You might be shocked by how many of your beliefs are borrowed, not chosen. Your reflection. If you could design your life from scratch with no regard for others' expectations, what would change? The gap between that vision and your current reality, that's where your chains are. Once you start seeing your chains, you'll realize something disturbing. Most of them were installed with your consent. Through a process so subtle, so seductive, that you helped forge your own shackles. That's the second rule. Rule number 2, reject the comfort of collective thinking. The second rule, the herd offers safety, but safety is the death of your soul. Nietzsche was obsessed with the herd mentality, the human tendency to think, feel, and act as groups rather than individuals. He saw it as the primary mechanism of modern slavery. Here's why the herd is so dangerous. It offers something irresistible, belonging. The feeling of being part of something larger than yourself. The comfort of shared beliefs. The security of knowing you're normal. But you pay for that comfort with your individuality, your authenticity, your capacity for independent thought. Think about how this operates. You're scrolling social media, and you see everyone expressing outrage about something. You feel pressure to join in to signal that you're on the right side. You might not even fully understand the issue, but the herd is moving and you don't want to be left behind. Or you're in a meeting and everyone's nodding along to an idea you think is flawed. But challenging it means standing alone against the group. So you nod too. The herd wins again. This is how collective thinking enslaves you. One small surrender at a time. Nietzsche wrote, "Madness is rare in individuals, but in groups, parties, nations, and ages it is the rule." He understood that crowds don't make people smarter, they make them stupider. Because in a crowd, you outsource your thinking to the collective. And when you outsource your thinking, you lose your freedom. Here's what most people don't realize. The herd doesn't just control what you think, it controls what you're allowed to think. There are certain questions you can't ask. Certain ideas you can't explore. Certain truths you can't acknowledge because the herd has decided they're forbidden. And the punishment for leaving the herd? Isolation. Ridicule. Being labeled as weird, difficult, problematic. That threat is enough to keep most people in line forever. But here's the paradox Nietzsche identified. The people who break free from the herd, who think independently, who question collective wisdom, who dare to be different, those are the people who actually move humanity forward. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every genuine advancement came from someone who rejected the herd's limitations. Let me tell you about Maria. She worked in an industry where everyone followed the same playbook. Same strategies, same tactics, same thinking. Maria had different ideas, but every time she shared them, she was shut down. That's not how we do things here. For years she conformed. Then she realized, the herd was stagnant. Safe but stagnant. So she took her ideas and left. Started her own venture. Failed spectacularly at first. The herd's way existed for a reason after all. But then she refined her approach. Combined her unique insights with hard-won experience. Within 3 years she was outperforming everyone who'd told her to stay in line. The herd was still doing things the way they'd always been done. Maria was innovating. Practical application. Identify one opinion you hold that you've never seriously questioned because everyone around you believes it. Not something trivial, something significant. Then deliberately seek out the strongest arguments against that position. You don't have to change your mind. You just have to prove to yourself that you can think independently about it. Practice the phrase, "I don't know enough to have a strong opinion on that yet." Use it liberally. It's revolutionary to admit ignorance in a world where everyone pretends certainty. And once this week, when everyone's agreeing on something, be the person who asks, what are we not considering? What are we missing? Not contrarian for the sake of it, genuinely curious. Your reflection. What's one belief you hold primarily because your tribe holds it? What would happen if you questioned it honestly? Breaking free from collective thinking creates space for something dangerous and beautiful. Your authentic self. But that self has been buried under layers of conditioning. The third rule shows you how to excavate it. Rule number 3, murder your false selves. The third rule, you've been performing a character for so long, you've forgotten it's not really you. Nietzsche wrote about self-overcoming, the process of transcending your current self to become something greater. But before you can become who you're meant to be, you have to destroy who you've been pretending to be. This is uncomfortable territory because most people have built entire identities around their false selves. The successful professional, the good parent, the loyal friend, the nice person. These aren't necessarily lies, but they're incomplete truths. They're masks you wear to navigate social expectations. And if you wear a mask long enough, it fuses to your face. Here's how the false self develops. From childhood, you're rewarded for certain behaviors and punished for others. You learn quickly that some parts of you are acceptable, others aren't. So you suppress the unacceptable parts and amplify the acceptable ones. By adulthood, you've constructed a persona designed to maximize approval and minimize rejection. This persona becomes your identity. You introduce yourself with it. You make decisions based on it. You live your entire life through it. But here's the trap: that persona isn't you. It's a survival strategy that's outlived its usefulness. And every moment you spend maintaining it is a moment you're not living authentically. Nietzsche argued that most people die without ever becoming who they truly are. They spend their entire lives performing for an audience, maintaining an image, living up to an identity that was constructed by fear and social pressure. He called this the camel, the beast of burden who carries the weight of thou shalt on its back. All the expectations, the obligations, the roles you're supposed to play. True freedom comes when you become the lion, the one who says, I will instead of I should. Who slays the dragon of obligation and discovers what's underneath. Let me give you an example. I knew someone, Michael, who'd built his entire identity around being the smart guy. He was the person everyone came to for advice, for solutions, for knowledge. Felt good. It gave him value. But it was exhausting. Because maintaining that identity meant he could never be wrong, never admit confusion, never show vulnerability. He trapped himself in a performance. When he finally let that identity die, when he started saying, I don't know, and I'm figuring this out too, people didn't respect him less. They connected with him more. Because they were finally meeting the real person, not the performance. Practical application. Write down 3 descriptions of how you present yourself to the world. I'm the person who always. Or people see me as. Now ask, which of these is authentic and which is a performance? Which energizes you and which exhausts you? Then this week, deliberately break character in a small way. If you're always positive, allow yourself to express genuine frustration. If you're the strong one, allow yourself to need help. If you're the busy, important person, allow yourself to do nothing. Notice how it feels. Notice who stays when you stop performing. Your reflection. Who would you be if no one was watching? If there were no consequences for being completely yourself? That person, that's who you've been hiding. As your false selves die, you might feel disoriented. Lost. That's normal. Because you're in the space between who you were and who you're becoming. The 4th rule helps you navigate this dangerous transition. Rule number 4. Embrace the void, create your own meaning. The 4th rule. Life will not provide meaning. You must create it or live in emptiness. This is where Nietzsche gets uncomfortable for most people. He looked at existence and said, there's no inherent purpose. No cosmic plan. No predetermined meaning. The universe is indifferent to your existence. For most people, that's terrifying. They need to believe their life matters in some objective, universal sense. But Nietzsche saw liberation in this truth. If there's no predetermined meaning, then you're free to create your own. You're not discovering your purpose, you're inventing it. This is modern slavery's deepest trap. The belief that meaning comes from external sources. From your job title, your social status, your relationship, your achievements. You think if you just accomplish enough, acquire enough, become enough, then life will feel meaningful. But it never does. Because you're searching for meaning in all the wrong places. Nietzsche called this the death of God, not literal atheism but the collapse of traditional sources of meaning. And he knew this would create a crisis. People who'd relied on religion, tradition, or social structures to tell them what matters would suddenly be adrift. Most people respond to this void by finding new masters. Instead of God, they worship success. Instead of tradition, they worship trends. Instead of meaning, they settle for distraction. But the psychologically free do something different. They embrace the void. They sit with the uncomfortable truth that nothing objectively matters, and then they choose what will matter to them anyway. This is radical responsibility. You can't blame the universe for your meaningless life. You can't wait for someone to hand you purpose. You have to forge it yourself. Let me tell you about someone who understood this. A woman named Elena. She spent her 20s searching for her calling. Tried different careers, different relationships, different cities. Always thinking, once I find the right thing, everything will make sense. Then she realized, there is no right thing out there waiting to be discovered. Meaning doesn't exist in the world, it exists in her relationship to the world. So she stopped searching and started creating. She chose to make her life meaningful through art, through connection, through learning. Not because these things are objectively important, but because she decided they would be important to her. 5 years later, she told me, "I wasted so much time waiting for life to feel meaningful. Now I understand, I make it meaningful through my choices." Practical application. Complete this exercise. Write your own eulogy. Not the nice, polite version for others, the honest one. What do you want your life to have meant? What values do you want to have embodied? What impact do you want to have made? Then ask, is my current life aligned with that? Am I creating the meaning I claim to want? And here's an advanced practice. Spend 1 hour in silence this week. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. Let yourself feel the void, the discomfort of existence without distraction. Most people can't do this. They need constant noise to avoid facing the fundamental emptiness. But in that void is where you discover what actually matters to you. Your reflection. If you stopped waiting for life to provide meaning and started creating it instead, what would change today? Once you start creating your own meaning, you'll notice something. The world doesn't support your autonomy. It actively resists it. Society needs you to be predictable, controllable, useful to its purposes. The fifth rule is about defending your sovereignty against these forces. Rule number 5. Guard your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. The fifth rule, your attention is your life. Whatever captures it, consumes it. Nietzsche didn't live to see smartphones, social media, or the attention economy. But he understood the principle: what you focus on expands. What you give your mental energy to shapes your reality. In our era, attention has become the most valuable commodity. Corporations, algorithms, and systems have spent billions figuring out how to capture and monetize your attention. And they're winning. Think about your day. How much of your attention is actually yours? You wake up, phone. You have breakfast, scrolling. You have a spare moment, check notifications. You're trying to focus, email pings. You're trying to relax, another platform calling for your attention. By the end of the day, where did your attention go? Who decided how you spent your mental energy? You or the systems designed to extract it? This is modern slavery in its purest form. The theft of your attention under the guise of connection, information, and entertainment. Nietzsche wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." But there's no chaos left, no space for original thought, when your attention is constantly hijacked by external stimuli. Here's what most people don't realize: attention isn't just where you look, it's who you become. Because your brain is shaped by what it focuses on. If you spend 8 hours a day consuming content designed to trigger outrage, anxiety, or envy, you become an outraged, anxious, envious person. If you spend your attention on shallow, fragmented information, you develop a shallow, fragmented mind. The psychologically enslaved surrender their attention freely. The psychologically free guard it ruthlessly. Let me give you an example. I knew someone, Daniel, who was always exhausted, always scattered, always behind. He couldn't understand why. He worked hard, slept enough, ate well. Then he tracked his attention for 1 week. The results were shocking. He was checking his phone over 150 times a day, spending 4 hours on social media, consuming news constantly. His attention was being shredded into tiny, useless fragments. When he implemented strict boundaries, no phone before 9 a.m., 1 hour total for social media, news only once a day, his mental clarity returned. Within a month, he'd completed projects that had been stalled for years. Same hours in the day. Different allocation of attention. Practical application. This week, conduct your own attention audit. Use screen time tracking. Notice when you reflexively check your phone. Count how many times you're interrupted versus how many times you work with deep focus. Then implement one boundary. Maybe it's no phone in the bedroom. Maybe it's 1 hour of completely uninterrupted work each morning. Maybe it's deleting one app that eats your attention without providing value. Start small, but start. Your attention is your life. Reclaim it. Your reflection. If you added up all the time you've given to social media, news, and shallow content this year, what could you have created with that attention instead? That loss, that's the cost of surrendering your sovereignty. As you reclaim your attention, you'll start noticing patterns you missed before. You'll see how much of your behavior is driven by fear, specifically the fear of judgment. The sixth rule confronts this directly. Rule number 6, become immune to social approval. The sixth rule, the opinion of the herd is the chain that binds tightest. Break it and you break free. Nietzsche understood something profound. Most people are slaves not to external authorities but to the opinions of others. They make every decision based on what people might think. They curate their lives for an imaginary audience. This is the most insidious form of slavery because it's self-imposed. Nobody's forcing you to care about others' opinions. You're doing it voluntarily. And it's destroying your freedom. Think about how much of your life is performed for others. The car you drive, would you choose it if no one saw it? The career you pursue, would you stick with it if no one knew your title? The opinions you express, are they yours or are they what your tribe expects? Most people's entire existence is a carefully curated performance designed to win approval and avoid criticism. And in doing so, they surrender their authenticity. Nietzsche called this the good opinion of others, humanity's greatest addiction. More powerful than any substance. More controlling than any authority. Because here's the mechanism. Social approval feels like survival. Our ancestors needed the tribe for literal survival, so our brains evolved to crave acceptance and fear rejection. That was adaptive when banishment meant death. But now, you won't die if people don't like you. You'll just be uncomfortable. Yet your brain still treats social rejection like a survival threat. So you optimize for approval. You avoid risks that might invite criticism. You hide parts of yourself that might be judged. You become a performance instead of a person. And this is slavery. Because someone who lives for others' approval is controlled by others' opinions. Let me tell you about someone who broke this chain, a man named Carlos. He was a people pleaser his entire life. Said yes when he meant no. Hid his real opinions. Chose safety over authenticity. Then his father died and something shifted. He realized, life is finite. Every day spent performing for others is a day he'll never get back. So he made a radical decision. For 1 year he would prioritize authenticity over approval. If someone asked his opinion, he'd give it honestly. If someone expected him to behave a certain way, he'd do what felt true instead. The first few months were brutal. Some people were offended. Some relationships ended. He was criticized, misunderstood, judged. But something unexpected happened. The people who stayed started relating to the real him. His relationships became deeper. His work became more authentic. His life felt like his own for the first time. A year later, he told me, I'd been so afraid of losing people's approval that I'd lost myself. Now I realize, their approval wasn't worth having if I had to betray myself to get it. Practical application. This week, practice small acts of authentic expression that might invite judgment. Share an unpopular opinion respectfully. Say no to something you'd normally agree to out of obligation. Pursue an interest that others might find weird. Notice the fear that arises. Notice the urge to self-censor. Then do it anyway. And practice this mantra, other people's opinions of me are none of my business. Say it when you feel the pull of people-pleasing. Your reflection. What would you do differently if you were completely immune to criticism? That difference, that's the measure of your slavery to others' opinions. Breaking free from social approval creates space for something powerful, your will. But most people have never developed a genuine will, they've only learned to want what they're told to want. The 7th rule changes that. Rule number 7, develop an iron will, or be shaped by others' wills. The 7th rule, in the absence of your will, you will serve someone else's. This is perhaps Nietzsche's most central teaching, the will to power. Not power over others, power over yourself. The capacity to direct your own life according to your own values. But here's what most people miss. You don't automatically have a will. It must be developed, forged, strengthened through conscious practice. Most people drift through life reactive, not generative. They respond to stimuli rather than creating from intention. They let circumstances shape them rather than shaping circumstances. This is slavery in its essence, the surrender of will. Think about your week. How many of your actions came from your genuine will versus external pressure? You worked on that project because you chose to, or because a deadline forced you. You socialized with those people, because you wanted to or because you felt obligated. For most people, life happens to them. They're passengers in their own existence. Nietzsche saw this as the ultimate tragedy. He wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But most people have no why they've chosen. They have whys they've inherited, absorbed, or defaulted into. Developing an iron will means becoming the author of your life rather than a character in someone else's story. Here's how will atrophies. Every time you know what you should do but don't do it, your will weakens. Every time you let distraction override intention, your will weakens. Every time you choose comfort over commitment, your will weakens. And here's how it strengthens, through practice. Through keeping commitments to yourself. through following through even when you don't feel like it. Your will is a muscle. Use it or lose it. Let me share a powerful example. I know an entrepreneur, Michelle, who built a successful company through sheer force of will. Not because she was more talented or luckier than others, but because she developed an iron will. Every morning she did the hardest task first. No excuses, no negotiations with herself. She committed to specific goals and achieved them not through motivation but through discipline. People would ask her secret. She'd say, "I don't wait to feel like it. I decided what matters and I do it regardless of how I feel." That's the iron will in action. But here's the deeper truth. When you don't develop your will, you become a tool for others' wills. Corporations will direct your purchasing. Algorithms will direct your attention. Social pressure will direct your behavior. You'll spend your life in service to agendas you never consciously chose. Practical application. This week, make one commitment to yourself. Something small but specific, and keep it no matter what. Maybe it's writing for 30 minutes daily. Maybe it's working out 3 times. Maybe it's completing a project you've been avoiding. The goal isn't the outcome. The goal is proving to yourself that you can decide something and follow through. And practice the 5-second rule. When you know you should do something, count backwards from 5 and move immediately. Don't give yourself time to negotiate. Your reflection. What's one thing you know you should do but keep avoiding? What would it mean about your will if you simply did it today? We've covered 7 powerful rules. But there's one final principle that integrates everything. A rule about the ultimate act of freedom that Nietzsche considered the pinnacle of human development. Rule number 8. Become your own revaluer of values. The 8th and final rule. The ultimate freedom is creating your own standards of good and bad, success and failure, worthy and worthless. This is Nietzsche's most radical teaching, the revaluation of all values. The idea that you must personally examine every value you hold and consciously choose whether to keep it. Most people are living by inherited value systems. Their parents' values, their culture's values, their religion's values, society's values. They've never stopped to ask, do I actually believe this? Does this serve my authentic life? This is the deepest level of slavery, having someone else's values programmed so deeply that you mistake them for your own. Nietzsche argued that there are no universal, objective values. Every value system was created by humans for specific purposes. Some values serve your flourishing. Others serve someone else's agenda. Your job is to figure out which is which. This doesn't mean becoming amoral. It means becoming the author of your own morality rather than the prisoner of inherited morality. Let me give you examples of values worth questioning. Success means wealth and status. Says who? Does that align with what actually makes you feel fulfilled, or did you absorb it from a culture that profits from your pursuit of more? You should be humble and self-effacing. What? Does that serve your growth, or does it serve a system that benefits from your smallness? You should always be productive. For whom? You or an economic system that extracts maximum value from your labor. These aren't necessarily wrong values. But they shouldn't be unconscious values. Nietzsche called people who create their own values the Übermensch. Not a superior race or person, but someone who has transcended inherited morality to become their own moral authority. This is terrifying for most people. Because if you're not following someone else's rulebook, how do you know you're doing it right? Answer: you don't. And that's the point. You trade certainty for freedom. I knew someone, Ahmed, who was raised in a very traditional family with clear values about success. Prestigious career, conventional marriage, material achievement. He followed that path dutifully. And he was miserable. Because those values weren't his, they were his family's. He valued creativity, adventure, depth of experience. But he'd never questioned whether the values he inherited served his authentic life. When he finally began his own revaluation of values, deciding consciously what he believed was good, worthy, meaningful, everything changed. He left a career that looked impressive but felt hollow. He built a life that looked unconventional but felt true. His family was disappointed. Society judged him. But he was free. Practical application. This week, conduct a complete values audit. Write down the 10 values that seem to guide your life. What you actually prioritize, not what you claim to prioritize. Then ask for each one. Where did this come from? Did I consciously choose it? Does it serve my authentic flourishing, or someone else's agenda? Create a new list. Your consciously chosen values. Not what you inherited, but what you're deliberately selecting. Then ask, does my life reflect these or my inherited values? The gap is your work. Your reflection. If you could design your own value system from scratch, If no one would judge you and you owed allegiance to no tradition, what would you value? What would constitute a life well lived by your own standards? There they are. The 8 rules of Nietzsche's silent revolution. 1. Recognize your chains before you can break them. 2. Reject the comfort of collective thinking. 3. Murder your false selves. 4. Embrace the void and create your own meaning. 5. Guard your attention like your life depends on it. 6. Become immune to social approval. 7. Develop an iron will. And 8. Become your own revaluer of values. These aren't easy principles. Nietzsche never promised easy. He promised true. He promised freedom. He promised a life lived authentically rather than obediently. But here's what you need to understand. This revolution can't be done for you. I can't free you. This video can't free you. Only you can free you. And it starts with a choice. The choice to stop drifting and start deciding. To stop performing and start being. To stop serving inherited values and start creating your own. Nietzsche believed that most people would choose comfortable slavery over uncomfortable freedom. That they'd surrender their potential for security. That they'd live and die without ever becoming who they truly are. But he also believed that some people, rare people, would choose differently. Would choose the harder path of authenticity. Would become their own authority rather than remain someone else's subject. I think that's you. I think that's why you're here. Because something in you refuses to accept slavery, even the comfortable kind. So here's your challenge. Choose one rule. Just one. And commit to embodying it this month. Not perfectly, growth isn't about perfection. But persistently. Maybe you'll start by recognizing your chains. Maybe you'll practice guarding your attention. Maybe you'll begin your revaluation of values. Start somewhere. Because every revolution begins with a single act of defiance against the way things are. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me which rule you're committing to and why. We're building a community of people who refuse to be slaves, to systems, to expectations, to inherited values. People who are choosing freedom even though it's harder. Join us. Remember Nietzsche's words, you have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist. Your way is yours to forge. No one can do it for you. No one should. Now go forge it. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay free.